The author's preface. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Praise be to God, the One, the Subduer, the Mighty, the Compeller, the Great, the Exalted, who created us for trial and testing, and prepared for us the garden and the fire, so the peril of that is grave, and the sorrow of it is long for whoever has reason and takes heed, until he knows where the journey ends and where the final abode lies. For he has disobeyed the Lord, opposed the Master, and risen and slept between wrath and good pleasure, not knowing which of the two has befallen him. So his grief over that is great, and his sorrow long, and his anguish severe, until he knows how his case stands with God. So toward God direct your desire for success, and of him ask pardon for sins, and by him seek help in all affairs. I marvel, how does your eye find rest? How do dread and apprehension depart from your heart, when you have disobeyed your Lord, and earned by your disobedience his wrath and his punishment, while death is, without fail, descending upon you with its anguish, its agonies, its resting, and its throes, as though it had already come upon you, swiftly and soon? The throes of death, its anguish, and its pangs. So imagine yourself struck down for death, a fall from which you will not rise except to the gathering before your Lord. Imagine yourself in the resting of death, its anguish, its agonies, its throes, its grief, and its disquiet, when the angel has begun to draw your soul from your foot, and you have felt the pain of his drawing it from the soles of your feet, then the drawing follows on, and the resting is urged, and the soul is drawn from your whole body, rising up from your lowest part to your highest, until, when the anguish has reached its utmost in you, and the pains of death have spread through your whole body, your heart fearful and grieving, watchful, awaiting the tidings from God, mighty and majestic, of wrath or of good pleasure, and you have known that there is no escape for you from hearing one of the two tidings from the angel charged with seizing your soul. Beholding the face of the angel of death and the tidings it bears. While you are in your anguish and your griefs and the pain of death with its throes, and the severity of your sorrow as you await one of the two tidings from your Lord, suddenly you look upon the surface of the face of the angel of death, in the fairest of forms or the most hideous, and you see him stretching out his hand toward your mouth to draw your soul from your body. So your soul is humbled at what you have beheld, and at beholding the face of the angel of death, and your heart hangs upon which of the tidings will take you by surprise from him, when you hear his voice with its tone, "Rejoice, O friend of God, in God's good pleasure and his reward," or, "Rejoice, O enemy of God, in his wrath and his punishment." So you are made certain then of your deliverance and your triumph, and the matter settles in your heart and your soul is at peace toward God, or you are made certain of your ruin and your destruction, and despair settles in your heart, and your hope and longing for God, mighty and majestic, are cut off. So there clings to your heart then either the utmost of grief and sorrow, or joy and gladness. When your term in this world has ended, your trace has been cut off from it, and you have been borne to the abode of the nations who passed away before you. Imagine yourself in the straits of your grave, and the sitting for the questioning of the two angels. So imagine yourself when your heart has flown up with joy and gladness, or has been filled with sorrow and weeping, and imagine the period in the grave, the terror of its onset, the dread of the two angels and their questioning you in it about your faith in your Lord, whether you are one made firm by God, exalted be his praise, with the firm word, or one bewildered, doubting, forsaken. So imagine their voices when they call you to sit for their questioning of you, that they may set you before their interrogation. Imagine you're sitting in the narrowness of your tomb, your shrouds fallen upon your hips, and the cotton from your eyes down at your feet. Imagine that, then you're fixing your gaze upon their forms and the hugeness of their bodies, for if you see them in fair form, your heart is certain of triumph and deliverance, and if you see them in hideous form, your heart is certain of ruin and destruction. So imagine their voices and their speech with their tones and their questioning, then it is God's making you firm, if he makes you firm, or his leaving you bewildered, if he forsakes you. The grave's opening onto the fire or the garden. So imagine your answer with certainty, or with bewilderment, or with faltering and doubt, and imagine their turning toward you, if God, mighty and majestic, has made you firm, with gladness, and they're striking the sides of your grave with their feet so that it opens onto the fire blazing with its burning, and they're turning to you with speech while you look at what God has turned away from you, so that your heart increases in gladness and joy, and you are certain of your safety from the fire. Then imagine they're striking the sides of your grave with their feet, and it's opening onto the garden with its adornment and its bliss, and they're saying to you, "O servant of God, look at what God has prepared for you, this is your dwelling, and this is your destination." So imagine the joy of your heart and your gladness at what you have beheld of the bliss of the gardens and the splendor of their kingdom, and your knowledge that you are bound for what you have beheld of their bliss and the beauty of their splendor. But if it be the other case, then imagine the opposite of all that, the rebuke of you, and your beholding the garden while they say to you, "Look at what God, mighty and majestic, has barred from you," and your beholding the fire while they say to you, "Look at what has been prepared for you, this is your dwelling and your destination." So magnify this as a peril, and magnify thereby your grief and sorrow in this world, until you know which of the two states in the grave is your state. Then comes annihilation and decay after that, until the joints are sundered, your bones crumble, and your body wears away, yet the sorrow of the tidings, or the joy, does not wear away from your soul anticipating, straining toward the rising at the resurrection, to the wrath of God, mighty and majestic, and his punishment, or to the good pleasure of God and his reward. And, along with that anticipation, your soul is shown its dwelling in the garden or its lodging in the fire. So oh the regrets of your soul and its griefs, and oh its delight and its gladness. Until, when the number of the dead is complete, and the earth and the sky are emptied of their inhabitants, and they have become stilled after their movement, so that no sound is heard and no person seen, and there remains the Most High Compeller, as he has ever been, eternal, one, alone in his grandeur and his majesty. The caller summons to all creation for the presentation before God. Then nothing takes your soul by surprise but the call of the caller to all creation, together with you, for the presentation before God, mighty and majestic, in abasement and lowliness, from you and from them. The effect of the voice falling upon hearing and mind. So imagine how the voice falls upon your hearing and your mind, and understand with your mind that you are being summoned to the presentation before the Most High Sovereign, so that your heart takes flight and your head turns grey at the call, for it is a single cry for the presentation before the possessor of majesty and honor, of grandeur and pride. While you are terrified at the voice, suddenly you hear the earth splitting open above your head, and you spring up, covered in dust from crown to foot with the dust of your grave, standing upon your feet, your gaze fixed toward the call, while all creation has surged up with you in a single surge, covered in the dust of the earth in which their decay was long. Imagine yourself naked and abased in the throng of creation. So imagine their surging up all together in terror and dread, from you and from them. Imagine yourself in your nakedness and your abasement, alone with your fear and your sorrows and your griefs and your cares, in the throng of creation, naked, barefoot, all of them silent in abasement and wretchedness and fear and awe. You hear nothing but the soft tread of their feet and the drawn-out voice of the caller, and creation is advancing toward him, and you among them advancing toward the voice, hastening in humility and abasement, until, when you reach the standing place, all the nations crowd together, of jinn and mankind, naked and barefoot. Sovereignty has been stripped from the kings of the earth, and abasement and littleness cling to them, so they are the lowliest of the assembly and the smallest of them in stature and worth, after their insolence and their tyranny over the servants of God, mighty and majestic, upon his earth. The greater gathering of mankind, jinn, beasts, and devils. Then the wild beasts come forward from the deserts and the mountain tops, their heads bowed for the abasement of the day of resurrection, after their wildness and their solitude apart from creation, humbled for the day of rising, though no trial befell them nor any sin afflicted them. So imagine their coming forward in their abasement on that mighty day, the day of presentation and rising. The predators come forward, after their ferocity and their boldness, their heads bowed, humbled for the day of resurrection, until they stand behind creation in abasement and wretchedness and brokenness before the Compeller King. And the devils come forward, after their insolence and their rebellion, humbled for the abasement of the presentation before God, glory be to him. Glory be to him who gathered them after the long decay, and the difference of their forms and natures, and the wildness of one toward another, the resurrection has abased them, and the rising has joined them together. The splitting and cleaving of the sky for the terror of the day of resurrection. Until, when the number of the people of the earth is complete, of its mankind and its jinn and its devils and its beasts and its predators and its cattle and its crawling things, and they have all stood level in the standing place of presentation and reckoning, the stars of the sky scatter from above them, the sun and the moon are blotted out, and the earth darkens with the extinction of its lamp and the putting out of its light. While you in creation are thus, suddenly the lowest sky is above them, and it turns with its hugeness above their heads, and that is before your very eye as you look upon the terror of it. Then it splits, in its thickness of 500 years, so oh the terror of the sound of it splitting in your hearing. Then it is rent and cleaves apart at the great terror of the day of resurrection, the angels standing upon its edges, which are the rims of what splits and cleaves. So what do you think of a terror in which the sky splits with all its hugeness? Its Lord melts it until it becomes like molten silver mixed with a redness, for the dread of the day of resurrection, as the majestic, the great, has said, and when the heaven is split open and becomes rose-colored like oil, and he said, on the day the sky will be like murky oil, and the mountains will be like wool. The commentators said that the murky oil is molten silver mixed with a redness, the wool is carded wool, and his saying rose-colored like oil is like the color of the rose-colored horse. The state of the angels of the sky when it cleaves. While the angels of the lowest sky are upon its edge, suddenly they descend, gathered down to the earth for the presentation and the reckoning, descending from its two rims with the hugeness of their bodies and their awesomeness, raising their voices in the sanctification of the Most High Sovereign who has sent them down, gathered to the earth in abasement and wretchedness, for the presentation before him and the questioning in his presence. So imagine their descent from the clouds, with the greatness of their awesomeness, the largeness of their bodies, the terror of their voices, and the severity of their dread, bowed for the abasement of the presentation before God, mighty and majestic, as Yahya ibn Ghalan al-Islami related to me, saying, Rishding ibn Sa'd related to us, from Abu al-Sam, from Abu Qabil, from Abd Allah ibn Amr ibn Alay with Macron, from the Prophet, that he said, God has an angel the distance between the corners of whose eyes, to the end of his eyelid, is a journey of 100 years. And Yahya ibn Ghalan related to me, saying, Rishding ibn Sa'd related to us, from Ibn Abs ibn Maymun al-Lakmi, from Abu Qabil, from Abd Allah ibn Amr ibn Alay with Macron, from the Prophet, that he said, God, mighty and majestic, has an angel the distance between the two lids of his eyes is 100 years. So O your terror, when creation is terrified, fearing that they have been commanded against, and asking them, is our Lord among you? The angels are terrified at their asking, in reverence for their sovereign, that he should be among them, and they call out with their voices, declaring him far above what the people of the earth imagined, Glory be to our Lord, he is not among us, he is the one who comes. Until they take their ranks, encircling creation, their heads bowed for the abasement of their day. So imagine them, robed in their wings, their heads bowed in the hugeness of their creation, in abasement and wretchedness and humility before their Lord. Then everything is thus, and likewise up to the seventh sky, the people of each sky doubled in number and in the hugeness of bodies, the people of each sky encircling creation in a single rank, until, when the people of the 7 heavens and the 7 earths reach the standing place. The gathering of the sun's heat and the breath of creation, and the flowing of sweat by rank. The sun is clothed with the heat of 10 years and brought near the heads of creation to the measure of a bow's length or 2, and there is no shade for anyone but the shade of the throne of the Lord of the worlds. So between one shaded by the shade of the throne and one exposed to the heat of the sun that has melted him with its heat, his anguish and disquiet severe from its blaze, then the nations crowd and press, one shoving another, and they are straitened so that feet stumble, and necks are cut short from thirst, and the heat of the sun and the blaze of the breath of creation and the press of their bodies gather, so that sweat flows from them, streaming until it pools upon the face of the earth, then upon the bodies, according to their ranks and their stations with God, mighty and majestic, in felicity or misery, until the sweat reaches, of some of them, their ankles, of some their hips, and of some up to the lobes of their ears. From Kathama, from Abd Allah, who said, The whole earth is fire on the day of resurrection, and the garden is beyond it, they see its maidens and its goblets. By him in whose hand is the soul of Abd Allah, a man will pour out sweat until it streams in the earth to his full height, then it rises until it reaches his nose, while he sees the people cast down. And from Ibn Umar, who said, The messenger of God said, Truly a man will stand on the day of resurrection in the sea of his sweat up to the middle of his ears, from the length of the standing. And from Abd Allah, raising it to the Prophet, and truly the disbeliever will be bridled by his sweat on the day of resurrection, from the length of that day, until he says, My Lord, the sweat has risen over you, and grief has closed upon you, and your soul has been straitened in your breast from the severity of the sweat and the terror and the dread, while the people with you are awaiting the deciding of the judgment, to the abode of felicity or to the abode of misery. Until, when the toil has reached its utmost in you and in creation, and their standing is long, neither spoken to nor regarded in their affairs, what do you think of their standing 300 years, in which they neither eat a single meal nor drink a single drink, no breeze nor sweet air fanning their faces, finding no rest from the weariness of their standing and the toil of their waiting, until the effort upon them is beyond what they can bear? Commentary on the verse the day mankind will stand before the Lord of the worlds. From Qatada, or Kab, who said concerning his saying the day when mankind will stand before the Lord of the worlds, they will stand the measure of 300 years. And he said, I heard Al-Hasan say, what do you think of a people who stood for God, mighty and majestic, upon their feet the measure of 50,000 years, in which they neither ate a single meal nor drank a single drink, until, when their necks were cut short from thirst, and their insides burned from hunger, they were carried off to the fire and given to drink from a boiling spring whose heat had reached its peak and whose blast was severe. Creation seeking intercession from the prophets before Muhammad. So when the effort upon them reached what they could not bear, they spoke one to another, seeking one honored before his master to intercede for them, for relief from their standing place and their waiting, that they might be sent on to the garden or to the fire and away from their standing. So they fled in alarm to Adam, and to Noah, and after him Abraham, and to Moses and Jesus after Abraham. Each of them says to them, My Lord has today been angry with an anger the like of which he was never angry before, and will never be angry the like of after. So each of them recalls the severity of his Lord's anger, mighty and majestic, and calls out that he is occupied with himself and his own deliverance. And so God, mighty and majestic, says, on the day when every soul will come disputing for itself, each one preoccupied with himself. So not one of creation turns toward another, each is preoccupied with himself, calling out, myself, myself, so that you hear nothing but the cry, myself, myself. So oh the terror of that. And you, what do you think of a day on which the chosen one, Adam, is called, and the friend, Abraham, and the interlocutor, Moses, and the Spirit and the Word, Jesus, despite their honor before God, mighty and majestic, and the greatness of the rank of their stations with God, mighty and majestic, each calling out, O myself, myself, in dread of the severity of his Lord's anger. So where are you among them, in your dread on that day, and your preoccupation with that day, and your sorrow, and your fear? Creation seeking intercession from the prophet. Until, when creation despairs of their intercession, seeing them occupied with themselves, they come to the Prophet Muhammad and ask him to intercede with their Lord. He answers them, then rises to his Lord, mighty and majestic, and asks his leave, and he gives him leave. Then he falls down prostrate before his Lord, mighty and majestic, and there is open to him such praise and laudation of him as he is worthy of, and all of that is within your hearing and the hearing of creation, until his Lord, mighty and majestic, grants him the hastening of their presentation and the regard for their affairs. So while you are with creation in the darknesses of the resurrection and the severity of its anguish, awaiting and anticipating the deciding of the judgment, and your passing to the abode of bliss or of sorrow, suddenly the light of the throne shines forth, and the earth gleams with the light of its Lord, and your heart is made certain of the compeller, who has come for your presentation before him, as though none were presented before him but you, and he regards none but your affair. From Umayd ibn Hilal, who said, It has been mentioned to us that a man will be summoned on the day of resurrection to the reckoning, and it will be said, O so-and-so son of so-and-so, come forward to the reckoning. Until he says, None is wanted but me, of those brought forth for the reckoning. The roaring and inhaling of hell, and creation fleeing on their faces from it. Then he called, O Gabriel, bring me the fire. So imagine it when Gabriel has come and said to it, O hell, answer. Imagine its agitation and its trembling in its terror that God, mighty and majestic, has created a creation by which to punish it. Imagine it when it shook and seethed and flared, and looked at creation from the distance of its place, and inhaled toward them and roared toward them, and drew its keepers, leaping upon creation in anger for the anger of its Lord against whoever opposed his command and disobeyed him. So imagine the sound of its roaring and its inhaling, and the rumble of its blast, when it has filled your hearing, and your heart has risen up to it and flown in terror and dread, and creation fled, fleeing from its roaring upon their faces, and that is the day of mutual calling. When they heard the onset of its roaring, they turned their backs and fell upon their knees around it. The state of creation at the second and third roar of hell. So imagine the gathering of the voices of the weeping of creation at its roaring and its inhaling, and the wrongdoers calling out with woe and ruin, and every chosen one and truthful one and elect and martyr and select, and all the common folk, calling out, myself, myself. So imagine the voices of creation, the prophets and those below them, every servant of them calling out, myself, myself, and you are among those who say it. While you are with creation in the severity of the terrors and the dread of hearts, suddenly it roars a second time, so your dread and theirs increase, and your fear and theirs, then it roars a third time, and creation falls upon their faces, their eyes fixed, and the hearts reach the throats, choke back, and they choke upon them, the hearts lodged in their throats, and the minds take flight, and the reason of the happy and the wretched alike is stunned, so that there remains no messenger and no chosen righteous servant, but his reason is stunned at that. God's questioning of his messengers about what he sent them with. Then God, mighty and majestic, turns at that toward his messengers, who are the noblest of creation before him and the nearest of them to him, for they are the callers to God, mighty and majestic, and the proof against his servants, and they are the nearest of creation to God, mighty and majestic, in the standing place, and the noblest before him, and he asks them about what he sent them with to his servants, and what answer they return to them. And he says to them, "What was the response you received?" The messengers alarm at the question, and they're saying, "We have no knowledge." So they return him the answer with stunned minds, not remembering, and say, "We have no knowledge. Indeed, it is you who is knower of the unseen." So magnify it as a terror that overtakes the messengers of God, mighty and majestic, in their nearness to him and their honor, until it stuns their minds, so that they do not know what their nations answered them. From Abu al-Hasan al-Damashqi, who said, "I said to Abu Qurra al-Azdi, how did their hearts endure the terrors of the day of resurrection?" He said, "When they are raised, they are created in a form by which they are strengthened for it." Abu al-Hasan said, "I said to Isq ibn Khalaf regarding God saying to the messengers, what was the response you received?" They will say, "We have no knowledge, did they not know what was returned to them in the world?" He said, "From the greatness of the terror of the questioning when they are questioned, their minds reel, so that they do not know what they were answered in the world, so they are truthful, until it is unveiled from them afterward, and they come to know what they were answered." He said, "So I related that to Abu Sulayman, and he said, Isq spoke truly, in that hour of theirs they are truthful, until it is unveiled from them and they come to know what they were answered." And Abu Sulayman said, "When you hear a man say to his companion, 'Between me and you is the bridge,' know that he does not know the bridge, for had he known it, he would not have desired to cling to anyone, and no one would cling to anyone." From Mujahid concerning his saying, "On the day when God will assemble the messengers and say, 'What was the response you received?' he said, they will be alarmed and say, 'We have no knowledge.'" And from Mujahid concerning God saying, "Mighty and majestic, and you will see every nation kneeling, that is, crouching upon their knees." He said, "I heard Abd Allah say, the messenger of God said, 'It is as though I see you, in heaps, kneeling at the brink of hell.'" He said, "I heard Abd Allah ibn Umar say, the messenger of God said, 'Whoever wishes to look upon the day of resurrection, let him recite when the sun is wrapped up.'" And from Amr ibn Dar, who said, "Whoever goes forth seeking good will find good. Is it upon the dryness of your eyes and the hardness of your hearts that you bear up? Lay it upon me, if I have not made you hear today an admonisher from the book of God, mighty and majestic." Then he recited, "When the sun is wrapped up, and when the stars fall, dispersing, and when the mountains are removed, until he reached a soul will then know what it has brought," or he said, "Until he sealed it, then he said, 'Hear me, O you triflings of the world.' So where are you among them in that standing place? Do you hope that the terror will reach you to the measure it reached them, rather than greater than what reached them, what your heart cannot bear, so that your body cannot stand under it? For these are minds stunned in that standing place, so how then with your mind, and what has befallen you, while you are the sinner, the disobedient, persisting in what your Lord, mighty and majestic, dislikes? Man fleeing from his family, who were his comfort in the world. So imagine yourself in that fear, terror, dread, estrangement, and bewilderment, when the child disowns you, and the parent, the brother, the companion, and the kin, and you flee from them all. How is it that you forsook them and they forsook you? Were it not for the greatness of the terror of that day, it would be no part of nobility or fidelity that you should flee from your mother and your father, your wife, your sons, and your brother, but the peril is grave and the terror severe, so you are not blamed for fleeing from them, nor are they blamed. You did not single them out for flight, apart from the kin, out of hatred for them. How could you hate them, or they hate you? How did you single them out for fleeing from them? Do you hate them, when they are the very ones who, in the world, were your intimates, the delight of your eye, and the ease of your heart? but you feared that some claim of theirs might lie against you, so that one of them would cling to you and dispute with you before your Lord, mighty and majestic, then perhaps it would be decided in his favor against you, and he would take from you what you hope to be delivered by, of your good deeds, and so part you from them, and you would come thereby to the fire. While you are in that, suddenly a neck of the fire rises up and speaks with an eloquent tongue, naming those it has been charged to seize from creation without reckoning. Then that neck advances and snatches them as a bird snatches grain, then folds over them and casts them into the fire and swallows them, then withdraws with them into hell. Then a caller calls, "The assembly shall know who is most worthy of honor, let those who praise God in every state arise." So they arise and are dispatched to the garden, then that is done with the people of the night prayer, then with those whom no commerce nor sale distracted from the remembrance of their master, until, when these groups of the people of the garden and the fire have entered, the scattering of the scrolls and the setting up of the scales. Then the scrolls fly out, into the right hand and the left, and the scales are set up. So imagine the balance, in its hugeness, set up, and imagine the flying scrolls, while your heart quakes, anticipating where your record will fall, into your right hand or your left. From al-Hasan, the messenger of God had his head in the lap of Isha, and he dozed, and she remembered the hereafter and wept, and her tears fell upon the cheek of the Prophet, so he woke at her tears and raised his head and said, "What makes you weep, O Isha?" She said, "O messenger of God, I remembered the hereafter. Do you remember your families on the day of resurrection?" He said, "By him in whose hand is my soul, in 3 places no one remembers any but himself, when the scales are set and the deeds of the children of Adam are weighed, until one sees whether his balance is light or heavy, and at the scrolls, until one sees whether he takes it in his right hand or his left, and at the bridge." From Anas ibn Malik, who said, "The son of Adam is brought on the day of resurrection until he is made to stand between the 2 pans of the balance, and an angel is charged with him. If his balance is heavy, the angel calls out with his voice so that creation hears, so-and-so son of so-and-so has prospered with a felicity after which he will never be wretched. And if his balance is light, the angel calls out with his voice so that creation hears, so-and-so son of so-and-so has become wretched with a wretchedness after which he will never be happy." Imagining your name called for the presentation before God. While you are standing with creation, suddenly you look at the angel, who has been commanded to bring forth the wardens of hell, facing forward with maces of iron in their hands, upon them garments of fire, and when you saw them you dreaded them, and your heart took flight in terror and dread. While you are thus, suddenly your name is called, and you are summoned over the heads of creation, the first and the last, "Where is so-and-so son of so-and-so? Come forward to the presentation before God, mighty and majestic." The angels seizing you and forcing you through the ranks for the presentation. The angels have been charged to seize you and bring you near to your Lord, and the likeness of names did not prevent them from knowing you by your name, for by what you see in yourself you know that you are the one meant by the summons that is sought. He said, Ayla ibn Am are related to us, saying, A with Makron ibn Abi Rab said to me, "O Ayla, how many are the names that share your name, and how many the names that share mine?" But on the day of resurrection it will be said, "O so-and-so," and only the one meant will rise, not another, for the knowledge that has settled in his heart. So you spring up upon your feet, your sinews trembling, your limbs shuddering, your color changed, terrified and dread-struck, your heart pounding in your breast with palpitation. When the angels charged with seizing you behold you, with agitation and trembling and fear having befallen you, they know that you are the one meant from among the servants, so they reach toward you with their hands and seize you roughly, then drag you to your Lord, mighty and majestic, as the led beasts are dragged, forcing you through the ranks, urged on to the presentation before God, mighty and majestic, and the standing in his presence, while creation has raised their eyes toward you, and you are dragged to your Lord, mighty and majestic. You're standing before a mighty Lord with a terrified heart and trembling limbs. So imagine, when you have stood, the agitation and trembling, your heart shaking, and imagine the touch of their hands upon your upper arms, and the roughness of their palms when they seized you. Imagine yourself urged on in their hands, and imagine your forcing through the ranks, your heart flying, your heart unstrung. Imagine yourself in their hands thus, until you are brought to the throne of the Most Merciful, and they cast you down from their hands, and God, mighty and majestic, calls you with his mighty speech, "Draw near to me, O son of Adam," and hides you in his light. So you stand before a Lord, mighty, majestic, great, generous, with a pounding, grieving heart, fearful and dread-struck, a fearful glance, lowly and abased, your color changed, your limbs trembling and agitated, like the little lamb when its mother gives it birth. In your hand trembles a written page that leaves out no calamity you committed nor any hidden thing you kept secret. So you read what is in it with a halting tongue, a refuted plea, and a broken heart. And how much speechlessness, shame, and cowering before the Master who never ceased to do good to you and to veil you. God's reminding you of your defiance through sins amid his favors to you. So with what tongue will you answer him when he questions you about the ugliness of your deed and the enormity of your crime? With what foot will you stand tomorrow before him? With what glance will you look at him? With what heart will you bear his mighty, majestic speech, his interrogation, and his rebuke? So imagine yourself, the smallness of your body, the trembling of your limbs, the pounding of your heart, when you have heard his speech reminding you of your sins, exposing your evils, halting you and confronting you with your hidden things. Imagine yourself in this state, with the terrors encircling you from behind. How many a calamity you had forgotten, he has reminded you of. How many a secret you had concealed, he has shown forth and made plain. How many a deed you thought had come out pure for you and safe, through your heedlessness toward the leaning of caprice away from what corrupts it, he has returned upon you in that standing place and nullified, after your reckoning of it had been great. So oh the regrets of your heart and your grief over what you neglected of your Lord's obedience. Until, when the questioning has been repeated over you, recalling every calamity and unrolling every concealed thing, the anguish exhausts you, and shame in you reaches its utmost, for he is the Most High Sovereign, and there is no shame before anyone greater than shame before him, for he is the eternal, the first, the everlasting, who has no like, the benefactor, the tender, the compassionate, the generous, the bountiful, the bestower, the munificent. So what do you think of the questioning of one who is thus, when he has laid bare your opposition to him, the slightness of your awe of him and your shame before him, and your defiance of him? The questioning about lifespan, deeds, body, wealth, and knowledge. So what do you think of his reminding you of your opposition to him, and the slightness of your concern in the world for his kindnesses to you and your regard for him, when he says, "O my servant, did you not revere me? Were you not ashamed before me? Did you make light of my watching you? Did I not do good to you? Did I not bestow favor upon you? What deceived you about me? Your youth, in what did you wear it out? Your lifetime, in what did you spend it? Your wealth, from where did you earn it and in what did you spend it? Your deeds, what did you do in them?" He said, the messenger of God said, "There is not one of you but his Lord will question him, with no veil between him and no interpreter." From Ad ibn Tim, who said, "I witnessed the messenger of God in a hadith of his, each one of you will surely stand before God, blessed and exalted, with no veil between him and no interpreter to interpret for him. Then he will say, did I not give you wealth? He will say, yes. He will say, did I not send you a messenger? He will say, yes. Then he will look to his right and see nothing but fire, then look to his left and see nothing but fire. So let each of you guard himself against the fire, even with half a date, and if he finds not that, then with a good word." He said, "I heard Abd Allah ibn Mas'ud say, there is not one of you but God, mighty and majestic, will be alone with him, just as one of you is alone with the moon on the night of the full moon. Then he will say, O son of Adam, what deceived you about me? O son of Adam, what did you do with what you knew? O son of Adam, what did you answer the messengers?" And from Ibn Mas'ud, that he said, "By God, there is not one of you but God, mighty and majestic, will be alone with him, as one of you is alone with the moon, seeing it. Then he will say, O son of Adam, what deceived you about me? O son of Adam, what did you do for me? O son of Adam, were you not ashamed before me? O son of Adam, what did you answer the messengers? O son of Adam, was I not watching over your eyes while you looked with them at what was not lawful for you? Was I not watching over your ears while you listened with them to what was not lawful for you? Was I not watching over your tongue while you spoke what was not lawful for you? Was I not watching over your hands while you reached with them for what was not lawful for you? Was I not watching over your feet while you walked with them to what was not lawful for you? Was I not watching over your heart while you intended what was not lawful for you? And you, O son of Adam, are between two grave perils: either he meets you with his mercy and is bountiful to you with his generosity, or he calls you to a strict reckoning and commands you to the abyss, and wretched is the destination. From Mujahid, who said, the 2 feet of a servant will not move on the day of resurrection from before God, mighty and majestic, until he questions him about 4 things: his lifetime, in what he wore it out; his deeds, what he did in them; his body, in what he wore it away; and his wealth, from where he earned it and in what he spent it. So what do you think of yourself and the weakness of your heart, while God, mighty and majestic, repeats over you the mention of his goodness to you, and your opposition to him, and the slightness of your shame before him? So magnify it as a standing place, and magnify him as a questioner from whom nothing hidden is hidden, and magnify what enters you of sorrow and grief and regret over what you neglected of his obedience and your committing of his disobedience. The Master's tenderness in forgiving the righteous servant. So when the effort of grief and sorrow and shame in you reaches its utmost, one of 2 things shows to you from him: wrath, or good pleasure with you and love for you. Either he says, O my servant, I veiled them for you in the world, and I forgive them for you today; I have forgiven you the greatness of your crime and the abundance of your evil deeds, and accepted from you the little of your good. So your heart flies up with joy and gladness, and your face shines for that. Imagine yourself when he has said it to you, and the radiance of joy and its light begin in your face after its gloom and its eclipse from the shame of the questioning and the speechlessness at the mention of your evil deeds, and you exchange gloom and sorrow for joy in your heart, and your face brightens and your color whitens. Imagine his good pleasure with you when you have heard it from him, surging in your heart, so that it is filled with joy, and you almost die of gladness and take flight in joy, and rightly so. For what joy is greater than the joy and gladness at the good pleasure of God, mighty and majestic? By God, had you died of joy in the world while imagining his good pleasure in the hereafter, you would have deserved it, even though you were not certain of his good pleasure in the hereafter, but only hoping for it. So how then with you, being certain of it in the hereafter? Had you imagined yourself, with mercy and forgiveness shown to you from him, you would have deserved that your soul fly from your body in joy. So how if you had heard from God, mighty and majestic, the good pleasure with you and the forgiveness for you, so that your fear was made safe, your weariness was stilled, and your hope and longing were realized in eternal abiding, and you were made certain of your triumph and your bliss forever, never ceasing, never perishing, without diminishment or denial? So imagine yourself before God, mighty and majestic, with his good pleasure shown to you, your heart flown up with joy, your face whitened, shining and lit, transformed from its creation so that it became as the moon on the night of the full moon. Then you go forth upon creation, gladdened, with a joyful face on which the utmost beauty and comeliness have settled, radiating light, gleaming with its sparkle, passing them by in beauty and comeliness and light and brilliance, your record in your right hand, an angel taking you by the upper arm, calling out over the heads of creation, this is so-and-so son of so-and-so, who has prospered with a felicity after which he will never be wretched. Your Lord, mighty and majestic, has made you renowned by his good pleasure with you before his creation, and has confirmed the good opinion of those who thought well, and nullified the suspicions of those who suspected you. And truly in this station tomorrow, over the heads of creation, there is a recompense for the station among the servants. He has recompensed you with the supreme station over the heads of creation, and made you renowned by his good pleasure with you and his befriending of you. So imagine yourself passing through creation, your record in your right hand, with the beauty of your face and its light, and the joy of your heart and its gladness, while their eyes are fixed upon you in envy of you and grief that they did not attain from God, mighty and majestic, what you attained. So let your hope and longing for that from God, mighty and majestic, be great, for he, mighty and majestic, if he shows you favor, you attain it. This is one of the 2 matters between which you stand at peril. From Afdal ibn Muris, who said, I was holding the hand of Abd Allah ibn Umar, and a man came to him and said, how did you hear the messenger of God mention concerning the private converse? He said, I heard the messenger of God say, God, mighty and majestic, will bring the believer near on the day of resurrection until he places over him his covering and screens him from the people, and says, O my servant, do you recognize sin such and such? He says, yes, my Lord. Then he says, O my servant, do you recognize sin such and such? Until, when he has made him acknowledge his sins, and he sees in himself that he has perished, he says, I veiled them for you in the world, and I forgive them for you today, then he is given the record of his good deeds. But as for the disbeliever and the hypocrite, the witnesses will say, these are the ones who lied against their Lord. Unquestionably, the curse of God is upon the wrongdoers. From Ibn Mazd, that he said, God, mighty and majestic, will spread his covering over his believing servant on the day of resurrection, and lay open his record at its back, and say, O son of Adam, this is a good deed you did on such and such a day, I have accepted it, and this is a misdeed you did on such and such a day, I have forgiven it for you. So he prostrates, and the people say, blessed is this righteous servant who found in his page nothing but a good deed. From Abd Allah ibn Anala, who said, God, mighty and majestic, will stand his servant on the day of resurrection and show forth his good deeds on the back of his page, and say to him, did you do this? He says, yes, my Lord. He says, I have not disgraced you by it today, and I have forgiven you today. So he says then, here, read my record. Indeed, I was certain that I would be meeting my account when he was delivered from disgrace on the day of resurrection. The misery of the disbeliever and hypocrite, taken to the fire, his face blackened. But as for the other matter, either he says to you, you are my servant, I am angry with you, so upon you is my curse, I will not forgive you the enormity of what you committed, nor accept from you what you did. He says that to you at some of your great sins, do you recognize it? You say, yes, by your might. So he is angry with you and says, by my might, you shall not take it away from me. Then he called the wardens of hell and said, seize him. So what do you think of God, mighty and majestic, saying it with the greatness of his speech, his awe, and his majesty? Imagine, if he does not pardon you, when you have heard it from God, mighty and majestic, in wrath, and the wardens are set upon you with their harshness and the roughness of their palms, girded with halters of fire, in fury for the anger of God, mighty and majestic, with violence upon you and roughness and severity, so that you are not aware until the feel of the roughness of their palms is upon your nape and your neck. Imagine the roughness of their palms when they seize your neck with violence, drawing near to God, mighty and majestic, through your torment and your humiliation. Imagine yourself dragged along, abased, certain of ruin, in their hands, while they go with you to the fire, your face blackened, passing through creation with the blackness of your face, your record in your left hand, calling out with woe and ruin, the angel taking you by the upper arm calling, this is so-and-so son of so-and-so, who has become wretched with a wretchedness after which he will never be happy. He has made you renowned by his wrath and displeasure against you, and your disgrace before his creation is complete, so he has belied the good opinion of those who thought well of you, and confirmed the suspicions of those who suspected you. And perhaps, if he does that to you, he does it for your dissembling toward his obedience before his servants, seeking station among them, with the fall of station and rank before him, so he disgraced you before the one whom you preferred over him in dealing, and were content with his praise for the obedience of your Lord, mighty and majestic, in exchange for his praise of you, blessed and exalted. So imagine that, then imagine it again, and recall this peril, and be one who reflects and is wary, which of the two matters will raise you, and which of the two has been prepared for you. From Kitāb, who said, a man is commanded to the fire, and 100,000 angels rush at him. Abu Abd Allah said, it has reached me that when the servant stands before God, mighty and majestic, and his standing is long, the angels say, what is the matter with you, you wretched servant? Upon you is the curse of God. Was it with all this that you defied God, mighty and majestic, while you used to display in the world an outward good? Abu Abd Allah said, and it has also reached me that when he is reckoned with and rebuked for the abundance of his wicked deeds, the angels say, what is the matter with you, you wretched man? Upon you is the curse of God. Was it with all this that you defied God, mighty and majestic, while you used to display the good in the world? He said, whoever endears himself to the people by what God, mighty and majestic, dislikes, and defies God, mighty and majestic, by what he hates, will meet God, mighty and majestic, while he is wroth with him and detests him. Then Abu Abd Allah said, as he was relating, by God, mighty and majestic, I have not come to evening but sorrowful over myself and over you. The discourse on crossing the bridge and its terrors. And along with that the bridge, with its thinness, its slipperiness, its terror, and the greatness of its peril, is before you. So imagine the dread that befalls your heart when you raise your glance and look at it, laid across hell in its thinness and its treacherousness, while hell beats with its waves beneath it. What a sight, how hideous and how terrible! And you have known that you are to ride upon it, while you look at the blackness of hell beneath it, and hear the crashing of its waves and the clamor of it seething from below it, and the angels calling out, Our Lord, whom do you wish to let pass over this? And calling out, Our Lord, deliver, deliver. While you look at the hideousness of its sight, suddenly the call comes, pass to the plane of resurrection. Then you are not aware until the earth has been lifted from beneath you and beneath creation to be changed, then it is changed for an earth of silver, and behold, creation is scattered upon an earth of white silver. Then it is said to you, as you look at the bridge in its dreadfulness, and it is said to the creatures with you, mount the bridge. So imagine the pounding of your heart and its terror when it has been said to you, mount the bridge, and your reason has flown in dread and terror. Then you raise one of your feet to mount it, and you find with the sole of your foot its sharpness and its thinness, so your heart flies in terror. Then you draw up the other and steady yourself upon it, riding, while your burdens have weighed you down and you carry them upon your back. Then you climb upon it with your heart flying, until you reach its summit, creation before you and behind you in a single rank. Then you descend with it shaking under you, creation upon it in a single rank, the beating of hell shaking them beneath it, so that the people tumble from before you and behind you. So imagine you're climbing upon it in your weakness, while you look at the men and women who slip, before you and behind you, their heads overturned, their feet raised up upon the bridge, the angels seizing the beards of the men and the forelocks of the women among those who professed God's oneness, the shackles upon their necks, and the fire rises up seeking them, and surges and inhales upon their crowns, and the angels cast at them with hooks and drag them, and the fire rises to them seeking them with its burning, and roars and inhales upon their crowns, and the sparks of the fire rush to their crowns and seize them, then draw their crowns down into its belly, while they cry out and scream, having despaired of themselves, and they go down into it as the fire draws their crowns into it, calling out with woe, and you look at them, terrified, fearful that you might follow them, your foot slip, and you fall from the bridge, your stature broken, your legs raised up upon the bridge. So imagine that with an unburdened mind, with pity for the weakness of your body, lightened in the world for the crossing over it, for the terrors of the resurrection were lightened only upon the friends of God, mighty and majestic, who imagined them in the world with their minds, so that the peril of deliverance loomed great for them, and they bore the weight of its cares in the world upon their hearts, and the burning of its fear upon their consciences. So their master lightened it thereby for them at the resurrection. So bind your heart to imagining it, and the fear of it, and grief over it, that he may lighten it for you thereby and make it easy, for he has sworn upon himself that he will not join upon his friends fear in the world and fear in the hereafter. So imagine you're crossing the bridge in severe fear and bodily weakness, and that you are one against whom there is wrath, unpardoned, and you are not aware until your foot has slipped from the path. So imagine yourself, if he does not pardon you, that your foot has slipped from the path, and you have said within yourself, I am gone forever, this is what I used to dread and fear. And your reason takes flight, then the other foot slips, and your head is overturned, your legs raised above the path, and you are not aware until the hook has entered your skin and your flesh, and you are dragged by it, and the fire rushes to you, raging, furious for the anger of its master, drawing you while you fall from the bridge, calling out when you find the touch of its blast, woe to me, woe to me. And regret and remorse overwhelm your heart, would that I had pleased God, mighty and majestic, so that he was pleased with me, and had desisted from what he dislikes before I died, so that he forgave me the torment of hell, its severity, and its seeking more. Until, when you come to it, you swell up at the first of what you are cast into, and God, mighty and majestic, calls to the fire, while you are flung upon your face, crying with woe and ruin, and he calls to it, have you been filled? So you hear his call, and hear its answer to him, are there some more, it says, meaning, is there room? And you are in its depth, while it blazes in your body, with a crashing in your flesh, then it is not long before your body drips and your flesh falls away, and your bones remain, then the fire is loosed upon what is in your belly and devours what is in it. So imagine your liver while the fire enters into it, and you cry out and are not shown mercy, and you weep and offer remorse, that if you were sent back you would not return, yet your repentance is not accepted, nor your call answered. So imagine yourself, your stay in it grown long, and the torment unrelenting, so that you reach the utmost of anguish, and thirst grows severe in you, and you remember drink in the world, so you take refuge in the hellfire's vessel, taking the cup from the hand of the keeper charged with your torment. When you took it, your palm hissed beneath it, and split apart from its heat and the surge of its burning, then you brought it near your mouth and it scalded your face, then you swallowed it and it flayed your throat, then it reached your belly and severed your bowels, and you called out with woe and ruin, and remembered the drink of the world, its coolness and its sweetness. Then the burning distressed you, so you rushed to the pools of the boiling water to cool yourself in them, as you used to bathe and plunge in water in the world when the heat grew severe upon you. But when you immersed yourself in the boiling water, you were flayed from crown to foot, so you rushed to the fire, hoping it might be easier upon you. Then the burning of the fire grew severe upon you, so you returned to the boiling water, and you go about between it and a scalding fluid that has reached the peak of its heat, seeking ease, but there is no ease between the boiling water and the fire. You seek ease, but there is no ease, ever. Calling to some of your kin in the garden, and their answering with disappointment. When the anguish and thirst grew severe in you, and the effort reached its utmost, you remembered the gardens, and a sob rose from your heart to your throat, in grief over the nearness of God, mighty and majestic, and sorrow over the bliss of the garden. Then you remembered its drink, the coolness of its water, and the sweetness of its living, so your heart was rent with regret at being barred from that. Then you remembered that in it are some of your kin, a father, a mother, or a brother, or others of the kin, so you called out to them with a grieving voice from a burning, restless heart, "O my mother!" or "O my father!" or "O my brother!" or "O my uncle! A drink of water!" But they answered you with disappointment, and your heart was rent with regret at how they dashed your hope, and at what you saw of their anger toward you for the anger of your Lord, mighty and majestic. So you fled to God with a cry for return and reprieve, that he might send you back to the world, but he left you a long age without answering you, in contempt of you, for your voice is detested before him and your rank is fallen before him. Then he called to you with disappointment from him, remain despised therein and do not speak to me. When you heard his call, with the majesty of his speech, casting you out from the start, then the like of you is not answered, and your nostrils and your mouth are bridled with a bridle, so that your breath stays trapped within you with no way out, and your breath is straitened in your breast, and you remain in distress, gasping, unable to speak, and no breath comes out of you. The torment of hell, an anguish that does not subside, and has no end. Then he wished to increase you in despair and regret, so he sealed the gates of the fire upon you and upon his enemies in it. So what do you think, if he does not pardon you, when you have heard the slamming of its gate as it is shut? So O your despair, and O the despair of the dwellers of hell, when they heard the slamming of its gates upon them, and knew then that God, mighty and majestic, had only sealed it so that no one would ever come out of it, so their hearts were rent with despair, and hope was cut off from them, no relief, ever, and no way out of it, and no escape for them from the torment of God, mighty and majestic, ever, an eternity with no death, a torment with no removal from their bodies, a continuous burning of their hearts and their pangs, no ease and no rest ever clinging to them, sorrows that do not pass, griefs that do not run out, sickness that is not cured, fetters that are not loosed, shackles that are never unbound, thirst they are never quenched after, anguish that never subsides, hunger they are never sated after except with the zakum that lodges in their throats, so they seek relief with drink to wash down their choking, and it severs their bowels, and the regret at the loss of God's good pleasure, mighty and majestic, in their hearts, and the grief of being barred from the nearness of God, mighty and majestic, going to and fro in their breasts. Their weeping is not pitied, their supplication not answered, they are not aided when they implore, their repentance is not accepted, their stumble not overlooked. The anger of God, mighty and majestic, is upon them, so he is never pleased with them, since he has hated them and detested them, and they have fallen from his sight and become contemptible to him, so he has turned away from them, crying for help and imploring, with no helper. Were you to see them, thirsty and hungry, calling to the people of the garden, their kin, all together saying, O people of the garden! O company of fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters! We came out of our graves thirsty, and were made to stand before God, mighty and majestic, thirsty, and were commanded to the fire thirsty, pour upon us some water, or some of what God has provided you. But they answer them with rejection, and regret and remorse return into their hearts, they writhe in it, no breeze ever fanning their faces, never tasting in it any coolness, never closing their eyelids upon the slumber of sleep, so they are in perpetual torment and unceasing humiliation. So picture yourself in this description, if he does not pardon you. Were you to see the tormented in their forms, the fire having devoured their flesh and effaced the beauty of their faces and erased their features, so that the bones remain, joined, burnt, blackened, and they writhe and toss in their fetters and shackles, calling out with woe and ruin, and shrieking with weeping and wailing, your heart would melt in terror at the ugliness of their forms, and you would grow faint from the stench of their rot, and from what reaches their heads of the fire flaring up on every side, and the glow of their bodies and the heat of their breaths. So how then with you, if you looked at yourself in it, and you are one of them, with hope and longing gone from your heart, and despondency and despair clinging to it, so that the bones are shaken off you, the flesh melted, the belly laid open and the liver and entrails devoured, and regret and remorse and grief overwhelm your heart. Turning back from sins in the world, and fearing God, in hope of mercy. So imagine that with an unburdened mind, and let mercy stir in it for your weakness, and turn back from what your master dislikes, and be pleasing, that perhaps he may be pleased with you. Seek refuge in him with your reason, ask him to relieve you, that he may relieve your stumbles, and weep out of fear of him, that perhaps he may have mercy on you and overlook your stumbles, for the peril is grave, the body weak, and death near. And God, majestic is his majesty, is, withal, watching, he sees you, and looking, no secret of yours nor anything open is hidden from him, so beware his looking at you with detestation and hatred and wrath and loathing while you are unaware, joyful or content of eye. So fear God, mighty and majestic, and dread him, and be ashamed before him, and revere him, do not make light of his looking, nor be heedless of his watching, revere his standing over you and his knowledge of you, be in awe of him and fear him before he seizes you suddenly. Let him see upon you the mark of the calamity of your opposing him, that he may know what his opposition has reached in you, for if he knows that of you, he pardons you and forgives you. So do not expose yourself to God, mighty and majestic, for you have no power against his wrath, no strength to bear his torment, no endurance for his punishment, and no endurance to be far from his nearness, so set yourself right before meeting him, for it is as though death has come upon you suddenly. So imagine what I have described to you, for I have described only some of the sum. Imagine that with an unburdened mind, certain, knowing what you have wrought against your soul, and what you have earned by your offense, and reflect upon your calamity in your religion, and let God, mighty and majestic, see upon you the mark of the calamity, that perhaps he may have mercy on you and overlook it, through his forgiveness and his protection. Imagine that God favors you with pardon, and you're crossing the bridge. So if you are of the people of pardon and overlooking, then imagine that God, mighty and majestic, has favored you with pardon and overlooking, your crossing of the path, your light running with you before you and on your right, your record in your right hand, your face whitened, having been set apart from before God, mighty and majestic, certain of his good pleasure with you, while you are upon the path with the throngs of the worshippers and the delegations of the God-fearing, the angels, calling out, "Deliver, deliver!" And dread, withal, does not leave your heart nor the hearts of the believers. You call out and they call out, "Our Lord, perfect for us our light and forgive us. Indeed, you are over all things competent." So reflect, when they saw the hypocrites, whose light was extinguished, dread stirred in their hearts, and they prayed for the perfecting of the light and forgiveness. So imagine yourself passing lightly, with dread, imagine your passage according to the lightness of your burdens or their weight, imagine yourself when you have reached the end of the path, the twilight having shone upon you, and you have beheld the bliss of the gardens while you are upon the path, so your heart yearns toward the nearness of God, mighty and majestic, and longs for the good pleasure of God, until, when you come to its end, you step with one of your feet onto the courtyard, between the end of the bridge and the gate of the garden, and place it upon the courtyard after the path, while the other foot remains upon the path, fear and hope having risen high in your heart and overwhelmed you, then you bring up the other, and cross the whole path, and your feet come to rest upon that courtyard, and you slip off the bridge with your body, and leave it behind your back, while hell quakes beneath whoever passes over it, and leaps upon whoever slips from it, enraged, roaring at him and inhaling toward him. Then you turn to the bridge and look at it in its quaking, and look at creation above it, and at hell beneath it, leaping and roaring at those who slipped from the path, with a crashing in their heads and their bellies, so your heart flies up with joy when you see the greatness of what God has delivered you from. So you praise God and increase in thanks to him, since you were delivered, in your weakness, from the fire, and left the fire and its bridge behind your back, heading toward the nearness of your Lord. The bliss of the garden, the processions of its people, and the detail of its bliss. Then you stepped, secure, toward the gate of the garden, your heart filled with joy and gladness, and you cease not in your passage with joy and gladness until you reach its gates. Reaching the gate of the garden and plunging into the spring God prepared for his friends. So when you reach its gate, it receives you with its beauty, and you look at its beauty and its light, and the beauty of the form of the garden and its walls, your heart flying up with joy, gladdened, attached to entering the garden. When you have reached its gate, you and the friends of the Most Merciful. So imagine yourself in that procession, and they are the people of God's honoring and His good pleasure, their faces whitened, shining with God's good pleasure, glad, joyful, rejoicing, and you have reached the gate of the garden with the dust of your grave, the heat of the standing place, and the glow of the weariness of what passed over you. So you look at the spring that God prepared for His friends and at the beauty of its water, and you plunge into it, gladdened by what you find of the coolness of its water and its sweetness, and it removes from you the sorrow of the standing place, and purifies you of every defilement and dust, while you are glad at what you find of the sweetness of its water, having escaped the glow of the path and its heat, for there reaches its gate one whom the fire had burned part of his body with its blast. So what do you think, having escaped the heat of the standing place, the glow of the breath of creation, and the severe blaze of the heat of the path, and reached the gate of the garden in that state? When you looked at the spring you cast yourself into it, so imagine the joy of your heart when the coolness of its water touched your body after the heat of the path and the glow of the resurrection, you glad in your knowledge that you bathe only to purify yourself for entering the garden and abiding in it, so you bathe in it without cease, your color changing to beauty, your body increasing in freshness and splendor and bliss. Coming out of the spring in the fairest form and fullest light. Then you come out of it in the fairest form and the fullest light, so imagine the joy of your heart when you came out of it, and you looked at the perfection of your beauty and the freshness of your face and its comeliness, while you are aware, certain, that you cleanse yourself for entering the nearness of your Lord. Going to the spring of drink to purify your insides of all rancour. Then you go to the other spring and take from one of its vessels, so imagine you're looking at the beauty of the vessel and the beauty of the drink, while you are glad in your knowledge that you drink this drink only to purify your insides of all rancour, your body forever soft. Until, when you set the vessel to your mouth and drank it, you found the taste of a drink the like of which you never tasted nor were accustomed to drink, and it slips down easily from your mouth to your belly, so your heart flies with joy at the pleasure you found. Then it cleansed your insides of every blemish, and you found the pleasure of the purity of your breast from every disposition that was in it, pulling it toward griefs and cares and greed and harshness and anger and rancour. So the coolness of the purity of your breast, and the ease of that upon your heart, the fragrant scents of the garden and the breath of its pungent musk. Until, when you have completed the purity of heart and body, and the beloved friends of God, mighty and majestic, have completed that with you, while God is watching, seeing you and seeing them, your Master, the bountiful, the tender, commands the keepers of the garden, the angels who never ceased obeying Him, fearing Him, apprehensive and dreading His punishment, magnifying Him and revering Him in awe, wary of His vengeance. He commands them to open the gate of His garden for His friends. So they descend from its abode, and hasten from its courts, and come to the gate of the garden, and stretch out their hands to open its gates, and you are made certain of that, so your heart flies up with joy and is filled with gladness, and you hear the lovely creaking of its gates, so joy rises over you and overwhelms your heart. So the joy of the hearts of those for whom the gate of the garden of the Lord of the worlds is opened. When its gate was opened for them, the breeze of the fragrance of the garden stirred, and the sweetness of the flowing of its water, and it fanned your face and your whole body, and the fragrant scents of the garden arose, pungent and sweet, and the breath of its pungent musk stirred, and its abundant saffron, its yellow camphor, its grey ambergris, and the scents of the sweetness of its fruits and its trees and what is in it of its breeze, and those scents entered into your nostrils until they reached your brain, and their sweetness was in your heart, and overflowed from all your limbs, and you looked with your eye at the beauty of its palaces and the foundation of their building, of green stone slabs, of emerald, and red ruby and white pearl, from which its light and splendor and purity have shone forth, for God has perfected it in purity and light, and mingled with it the light of what is in the gardens, and your heart rejoiced in your knowledge that when you enter it, there is for you in it the increases and the gazing upon the face of your Lord. So the sweetness of the scents of the garden gathered, and the beauty of the splendor of its sight, and the sweetness of its breeze, and the coolness of its air, and that is the first ease and sweetness in which there is no end, the fanning of your face. So imagine yourself, gladdened at the entering, for your knowledge that its gate will be opened for you and for those with you, the friends of God, and your joy at what you look upon of the beauty of its splendor, and what has reached your heart of the sweetness of its fragrance, and what has touched your face and your body of the sweetness of its air and the coolness of its breeze. So imagine yourself favored by God with this state, for if you died of joy it would be your due. Until, when they opened its gate, they came toward you laughing in your face and the faces of the friends of God with you, then raised their voices, swearing by his might, we have never laughed since we were created except toward you, and they called out to you, peace be upon you. So imagine the loveliness of their tones, the sweetness of their speech, and the beauty of their greeting, in the perfection of their forms and the intensity of their light. Then they followed the greeting with their saying, you have become pure, so enter it to abide eternally therein, praising them for the purity and refinement from every defilement and grime and rancour and deceit, and every blemish in religion or in worldly life. Then they gave them leave, on God's behalf, to enter into his nearness. Then they informed them that they are to remain in it forever, so they said, you have become pure, so enter it to abide eternally. When you heard the leave, and the friends of God with you, you all rushed to the gate to enter, and the gates were thronged with the crowd, as Abba ibn Ghazwan related from the Prophet. So what do you think of a gate the span of a journey of 40 years, thronged with the crowd of the friends of the Most Merciful? How noble they are, crowding, rushing to what they have beheld of the beauty of the palaces of ruby and pearl. So imagine yourself, that God has pardoned you, in that crowd, rushing among the rushers, glad among the glad, with bodies that have been purified and faces that have shone and lit up so that they are like the full moon, the radiance shining from their persons like the beams of the sun. When you passed its gate, you set your feet upon its soil, and it is pungent musk, and growing saffron, the musk poured upon an earth of silver, and the saffron growing around it, and that is the first step you stepped in the land of permanence, in security from torment and death. So you pass through the soils of musk and the meadows of saffron, your eye scanning the beauty of the splendor of the pearl, of the beauty of its trees and the adornment of their fashioning. Your reunion with your family and children, and their rejoicing at your coming. While you pass through the courts of the gardens, in the meadows of saffron and the dunes of musk, suddenly a call goes out among your wives and your children and your servants and your boys and your stewards, so-and-so has come forward. So they answer and rejoice at your coming, as the family of the absent one is given glad tidings in the world at his coming, as Ali ibn Abi Talib, may God be pleased with him, said. So while you look at your palaces, suddenly you hear their clamor and their welcoming, and you fly up with joy at that, while you are gladdened by their delight at your coming. When you heard their clamoring in joy at you, suddenly the stewards rushed to you, and the boys stood in ranks for your coming. Your wives calling out to receive you. While the stewards came forward toward you, suddenly haste seized your wives, so each of them sent some of her servants to look at you coming forward and hurry back to her with your coming, that she might be set at ease by him, joyful, and settled to that, gladdened. So the servants looked at you before your stewards met you, then each one's messenger rushed back to her. When he informed her of your coming, each one said to her messenger, did you see him? Out of the intensity of her joy at that, then each one sent another messenger, and when the glad tidings of your coming came, they could not contain themselves for joy, so they wished to come out to you, rushing to meet you, but for the fact that God had decreed seclusion for those in the pavilions until your coming, as your sovereign said, fair ones reserved in pavilions. So they placed their hands upon the doorposts of their doors, and craned their heads, watching for when the surface of your face would appear to them, that they might still the longing within them and the intensity of their yearning toward you, and look upon the delight of their eyes and the source of their ease and their intimacy, the friend of their Lord and the beloved of their Master. So while you stroll among the dunes of musk and the meadows of saffron, having cast your glance toward the beauty of the splendor of your palaces, suddenly your stewards receive you with their light and their splendor, and the first steward of yours receives you, so you magnify his rank and think he is one of the angels of your Lord, but he says to you, O friend of God, I am only your steward, charged with your affairs, and you have 70,000 stewards besides me. Then the stewards follow on with their splendor and light, each magnifying you and greeting you. Imagining your procession of children and servants. So imagine your heart in the gardens, with your stewards standing before you, magnifying you, then the attendants and servants, who receive you as though they were hidden pearls, and they greet you, then go before you. So imagine your stately progress in a procession of your stewards and servants who escort you in procession to your palaces, the gates of your palaces opened, their curtains raised, of the beauty of the splendor of their chambers and the adornment of their trees, and the glad tidings from your servants calling out to your wives, this is so-and-so son of so-and-so, he has entered by the gate of his palace. When they heard the call of glad tidings at your coming and your entering, they sprang up from the couches upon the beds within the bridal canopies, while your eye watches them within the pavilions and domes. So you looked at their springing up, the tender, the soft, the modest, the delicate, springing up with a swaying gait and a stately bearing. So imagine each of them when she sprang up, in the beauty of her garments and her adornment, with the loveliness of her face, swaying her body in its softness. So they sprang up until they came to the doors of their pavilions and domes, then took with their hands the doorposts of their pavilions, standing, holding the doorposts of their doors, then craned out their heads and their faces, leaning down from the doors of their domes, watching, looking at you coming forward, filled with joy and gladness for you. So imagine yourself, with the joy of your heart and its gladness, having scanned them with your glance, your gaze falling upon the beauty of their faces and the languor of their eyes, and when you faced their faces, your glance was dazzled and your heart stirred with joy, so that you remained as one stupefied, lost in the greatness of what stirred in your heart of joy at what your eyes saw, and your soul was set at ease by. So while you strolled toward them, you drew near the doors of the pavilions, and they hastened, rushing, love having seized them, hurrying, swaying in the bliss of their bodies, gliding in the perfection of their forms. Then each of them called to you, O my beloved, what kept you back from us? And you answered her, saying, O my beloved, God, mighty and majestic, did not cease halting me over sin such and such, until I feared I would not reach you. So they walked toward you in fine silk and brocade, stirring up the musk and shaking the saffron plants with the hems of their garments and their anklets, hastening to you, longing and yearning for you. The first of them to come forward to you stretched out to you her fingers and her wrist and her ring, as the Prophet, peace be upon him, said. So imagine the beauty of fingers fashioned of saffron and camphor, made soft in the gardens for 1,000 ages. Imagine it when she stretched it to you, gleaming with light and shining with radiance, and when you set her fingers in your fingers, you found a soft touch in its bliss, and it almost slipped from your hands for its softness, and your mind almost departed for joy at what reached your heart of the sweetness of the touch of her fingers. Then you reached your hand to her soft, tender body, and she drew you to her bosom, and you bent over her with your palm and your forearm until you set it upon the necklaces at her throat. Then you embraced her and she embraced you. So imagine the bliss of her body when she embraced you, your body almost entering hers for its softness and bliss. Imagine what touched your breast of the beauty of her bosom and the pleasure of embracing her. Then you smelled the sweetness of her cheeks. So your heart departed from all else but her, until it drowned in joy and was filled with gladness at what reached your spirit of the sweetness of her touch and the pleasure of the scents of her cheeks. So while you are thus, they melted over you and fell upon you, kissing you and embracing you, filling your face with their mouths, kissing, and filling your breast with their bosoms, encircling you with the beauty of their faces, covering your body and veiling it with their tresses, while there gathered in your nostrils the scent of the sweetness of their cheeks. So imagine yourself, with them bent over you, kissing your mouth, breathing their scent over you, swaying in the bliss of their bodies, finding rest in your embrace from the intensity of their love and the length of their longing for you, joyful with your body, delighting in the breeze of the scent of your cheeks. When the lightness of joy had taken hold of your heart, and the pleasure of gladness had spread through your whole body, and the promise of God, mighty and majestic, was fulfilled in your joy, you called out, Praise be to God, who kept his promise true to me and fulfilled for me what was promised. Then you remembered your seeking of them from your Lord with diligence and striving. So where are you in the outcome of that deed which you faced, while you kiss them and smell their cheeks? For the like of this let the workers work. Then they praised you and you praised them, then they raised their voices, that they might give you security through their knowledge of the events of the ages, calling out all together with their voices, We are the well-pleased, never angry, we are the abiding, never departing, we are the everlasting, never perishing, we are the soft and blissful, never wretched, blessed are you. You are for us and we are for you. Then you went on with them, How beautiful your sight, while you are in your procession of your and your children and your servants, the tents and their carpets, cushions, and rugs, until you reached one of your pavilions, and you looked at a pavilion of a hollowed pearl, studded with ruby and emerald. You looked at the beauty of its doors and the splendor of its curtains, then cast your glance within it, and looked at its carpets and its furnishings and its rugs, and the beauty of the foundation of its building, fashioned in courses upon slabs of pearl and ruby. The couches, the silk, the brocade, and the fine silk. Then you looked at your couch in its loftiness, upon it its furnishings of silk and brocade, their linings such that their outer faces are overlaid with dense light, and upon their edges, above the silk and the brocade, the beauty of the green coverlet. These are the appointments of the sitting places, and when you considered those furnishings in their beauty, with the cushions above them folded, your glance was dazzled by them. Then you looked at its canopy above its couch, encircling the throne above it. So imagine the beauty of the doors, the beauty of the curtains, the beauty of the court of the dome with the beauty of its furnishings, the beauty of the couch and the beauty of its legs and its loftiness, the beauty of the furnishings upon it, the cushions above its furnishings, and the canopy pitched above all of that, and let all of that sway before your glance. When you drew near your furnishings, it lowered itself with the couch, and the arose and you ascended with her, so imagine her mounting it with the greatness of her body and its bliss, until she settled upon it, seated. Then you climbed onto the couch and steadied yourself upon it with her, and she faced you and you faced her. The completion of your joy with the al-ʿīn. So how beautiful your sight of her, seated in her garments and her adornment, with the loveliness of her face and the bliss of her body. The bracelets upon her wrists, the rings upon her hands, the anklets upon her shins, the girdle encircling her bosom and circling her waist, the necklaces at her neck, the strings of jewels upon her throat, the diadems of pearl and ruby upon her brow and forehead, and the crown above all of that upon her head, and the tresses beneath the crown loosed from her shoulders, reaching her hips. You see your face in her throat, and she looks at her face in your throat. The boys encircle your dome, the attendants stand before you and her, the trees lean down with their fruits from the sides of your canopy, the rivers stream around your palace, the brooks rise high upon your pavilion with wine and honey and milk and salsabil. Your beauty and her beauty are perfected, and you are clothed in silk and fine silk, with bracelets of gold and pearl upon every joint of your joints, and the crown of pearl and ruby set upright above your head, and the diadems of pearl studded with light upon your brow. And the garden and all your palaces have lit up from the radiance of your body and the light of your face, while you behold, from the purity of your palaces, all your wives and your servants and all the chambers of your apartments, and the fruits of your trees have leaned down to you, and your rivers of wine and milk stream beneath you, and water and honey above you, while you sit with your wives upon your couch, the leaves of your doors flung open, the canopies of your pavilion let down over you, the servants and boys thronging about your dome, and you hear their tumult in the sanctification of your Lord, and they have looked into the inmost of your heart, so they hasten to everything that crosses your mind of the kinds of your honoring and your joy and your wishes, and they bring you your every wish, while you and your wife are in the most perfect state and the fullest bliss, and your glance is dazzled by her, gazing at her, marveling at her beauty and her perfection. Your heart delighted by her loveliness, your heart set at ease by her beauty, so she is your boon companion upon your couch, vying with you and passing you the wine and the salsabil and the tasnim, in cups of pearl and goblets of crystal of silver. So imagine the cup of ruby and pearl in her fingers, when she has brought it near you, laughing with the beauty of her smile, the light of her fingers shining in the drink with the light of her face and her throat and the light of the gardens and the light of your face, you facing her, and there gathered in the cup that is in her fingers the light of the cup, the light of the drink, the light of her face, the light of her throat, and the light of her smile. So what do you think of the tresses of a youth, beardless, perfect in form, most radiant of face, whitest of body, freshest of garment, with adornment of the gold of the gardens tinged with the redness of ruby, the whiteness of pearl, and the beauty of pure gold? So oh what a bride! And oh what a bride is she, a maiden, intimate, tender, perfect in her creation. And oh the beauty of her face, and oh the whiteness of her bosom and the swaying of her body. Femininity clothes her, and bliss makes her soft. She looks at you with the languor of the hour, and speaks to you with the loveliness of speech, and beckons you with coquetry, and plays with you in love and glances, in her hand a cup of pearl that has no shade, or of ruby that has no like in its purity and the fineness of its substance, which she has beautified with the beauty of her palm and her fingertips and the light of her rings within it. So imagine the beauty of the cup, with its whiteness, with the whiteness of the drink, with the whiteness of her palms and their beauty, when she has drawn near you, laughing with the beauty of her smile, and you laugh too at her, and there gathered in the cup that is in her fingers your light with her light, and the light of the cup and the light of the drink and the light of her face and her throat and her smile and the light of the gardens. So imagine it, with these lights, in its brilliance, gleaming in its purity in her palm, when she stretched her hand to you with it, with her rings and the bracelets upon her wrists, and handed you the cup with her palm. So how beautiful her handing! And how beautiful she is as a hand! Then she passed you cups of wine in the abode of security and pleasures and joy, so you took it from her, then set it to your mouth, then let it slip down within your mouth, so its joy ran into your heart and its pleasure spread through your limbs, and you found of it the most delicious taste and the sweetest, and you drank it while the boys stand before you. So imagine that, when you have drunk the cup from her hand, then handed it to her from your hand, and she took it with the beauty of her palm, laughing, how beautiful her laughter! And drank it from your hand, until, when you have passed the cup between you, and it has gone round between you, and the light of the drink has spread in her cheeks, and you have raised your voices in praise and sanctification of your master and your Lord, and the boys and servants have raised their voices in glorification and praise, answering you both, how beautiful those voices with those tones in those palaces and those pavilions. The angels seeking leave to present gifts from God. While you two are in your pleasures and your joy, and ages of time have passed and you are not aware, from the occupation of your hearts with your bliss, suddenly the angels burst in with a greeting upon you, and brought you gifts and kindnesses from your Lord, until the messengers of your Lord reached the chamberlains beneath you and the stewards charged with you, and asked them for leave to come into you, that they might deliver what they had brought from your master to you. So your chamberlain said then to the angels of your Lord, the friend of God is busy with his wives, and we are loath to seek leave to come into him, in reverence and honor of him, and likewise God your Lord, blessed and exalted, says, and so came the interpretation, in joyful occupation. So magnify it as an occupation, and magnify yourself as a king before whom the messengers of your Lord seek leave. And when you look, and likewise says he who raises the rank of his friends in his nearness, blessed and exalted, there you will see pleasure and great dominion. So it was said in the interpretation, that is the angels seeking leave to come into them, and it was said to him, the messenger of God is at the door. O friend of God, none enters upon you except by leave. O friend of God, you have attained from God good pleasure, and reached the utmost of kingdom and desire. Imagine the joy of your heart at your Lord's gifts and his kindness. So imagine the angels as they say, when your chamberlains refuse to seek leave for them to come into you, we are the messengers of God to him, with gifts and kindnesses from his Lord. So your chamberlains sprang up then, seeking leave for them to come into you. Imagine the hands of the chamberlains, having stretched them to the rings of ruby studded with pearl upon plates of red gold, and they knocked the rings of the doors of your palace, and when the rings of ruby struck the doors of your palace, of pearl and emerald, the rings rang upon the doors with the loveliest ringing, by which the hearing is delighted and the hearts of the listeners gladdened, and when the trees heard their ringing, their fruits inclined one toward another, so there blew thereby the sense of their sweetness and their breeze, then there shone forth from your dome the beauty of your face and the radiance of your light, so the chamberlains hastened to you with the word, lowering their eyes in reverence of you, O friend of God, the messengers of God are at the door, and with them gifts from your Lord. So you returned to them the answer, admit the messengers of my master. So the chamberlains, at your leave to them, opened the doors of your palace while you reclined, and they entered upon your couch, the boys arrayed before you, and the angels came forward in the beauty of their forms, the gifts gleaming and radiating light in their hands, and they entered upon you from separate doors, that your Lord might fulfill for you what he promised you, from every door, peace be upon you, and they began with a greeting upon you all in the beauty of their tones from all your doors, then they followed their greeting, O friend of God, your Lord says, peace be upon you, and he has sent you these gifts and kindnesses. So you turn to your bliss with your wife, your glance dazzled by her, your joy in her intense, while you are with her in the utmost of joy and gladness, suddenly the call came, in the loveliest tone and the sweetest speech, from some of those whom God has prepared of your wives, O friend of God, is there for us no turn with you? Is it not time for you to look at us? When your ears were filled with the beauty of her speech, your heart flew up with love for the beauty of her tone, so you answered her, and who are you? God bless you. She returned the answer to you, I am one of those of whom God, mighty and majestic, said. The detail of what has been hidden for them of comfort for eyes. And no soul knows what has been hidden for them of comfort for eyes. So imagine you're springing up from your couch into the court of your dome, then you walked with your boys and your servants, and her boys and her servants accompanied them, receiving you, and they received you and walked before you, until you came to a dome of red ruby in a palace of pearl and ruby, and when you drew near the gate of her palace, your stewards and your servants stood, raising the curtains of your palace, and you entered it, filled with joy. So imagine the gate of the palace, the beauty of the curtain, the beauty of the screen, the stewards and the servants, Then you entered by the gate of your palace from which your wife called you, and when you entered by its gate, your glance fell upon the beauty of its walls of green emerald, the beauty of its meadows, the splendor of its building, and the radiance of its courts, and you looked at your dome in which your wife is, the light of the dome gleaming with light and brightness and radiance from the light of your face and the light of your wife's face, and when she looked at you, she came down from the silk and brocade and purple furnishings, from her couch, rushing, the intensity of longing for you having seized her and love having stirred her, and she received you with welcome and reverence, then leaned toward you to embrace you, and so Anas ibn Malik related from the Prophet that the receives the friend of God and clasps his hand. So imagine the touch of the softness of her palm in its beauty, with her rings, in your palm, while you stood as one stupefied, marveling at the beauty of her face, the bliss of her body, and the gleaming of the light from her cheeks. Then she set her palm in your palm until you both came to your couch over which your bridal canopy was pitched, and you both climbed up together onto your couch, the majesty of your canopy overshadowing you, and you embraced your wife upon her furnishings, and the long ages passed with you. Then the boys came forward with the cups and goblets and stood in ranks before you, then you both passed the cup between you. While you two were filled with joy and gladness, suddenly another called you from one of your palaces, O friend of God, is there for us no turn with you? Is it not time for you to long for us? So you answered her, and who are you, God bless you? She returned to you the word, I am one of those of whom God, mighty and majestic, said. The detail of and with us is more. And with us is more. So you turned to her, moving among your wives in your palaces, gazing at your bliss. These blessings are everlasting. So you were made safe from death, never fearing it, with no cessation to anticipate and no sickness to dread. You do not fear his displeasure ever, after his good pleasure with you, so you do not fear his vengeance in what you move about in of his bliss, while you know that God, mighty and majestic, loves you, is glad with you and with what you move about in of your joy. So magnify the abode of God as an abode, and magnify the nearness of God as a nearness. The throne has shaded you with its shade, and the angels frequent you with kindnesses from your Lord, in a life that no death removes, and a bliss for whose loss you have no fear, secure from the torment of your Lord, made certain of his good pleasure with you, having found the coolness of his pardon in your heart, abiding, lasting, in eternity, with security from the calamities of time. God's private converse with his friends and their drawing near to him. So while his friends, and you among them, converse beneath the shade of Ba with Macron, suddenly God commands a caller from his angels, and he calls his friends, that he may fulfill for his friends what he promised them of the utmost of his honoring and the greatness of his joy with them, by bringing them near to him, and conversing privately with them in his welcome, and showing them his generous face, that they may attain thereby the noblest of stations, the utmost of joy, and the furthest reach of desire. So you are not aware until the call of the angel, O people of the garden, you have with God an appointment you have not yet seen, so they return the word, magnifying what they have been given, for there is no gift above what they have been given after that, of entering into his nearness and security from his torment, and you are among those who say it. Then his caller called, God invites you to visit him, so visit him. While they are thus, and their hearts have almost flown with their souls in their bodies for joy and gladness, suddenly the angels come forward leading noble she-camels created of ruby, into which the spirit has then been breathed, bridled with chains of gold, their faces as though they were lamps, in freshness and beauty, neither dunging nor staling, winged, covered with red silk of the garden, and white plush of its plush, shining in its whiteness. Upon their backs 2 stripes, a redness within a whiteness, in the fashion of the markings of noble mounts in the world, the like of whose beauty of color creation has never beheld. So imagine the beauty of those mounts and the beauty of their forms, mounts of the ruby of the garden in its redness and its purity and the radiance of its light and its gleaming when it walks in its movement. Imagine them, in their beauty and the beauty of the faces of the angels and the beauty of their bridles of chains of the gold of the gardens, while the angels lead them and bring them toward the friends of God, you among them, balanced in their gait with the beauty of their pace, for they are noble mounts created upon the beauty of pace without any training from servants, mounts without breaking, gentle, led by their chains, obedient without labor. So imagine the angels coming forward with them toward them, until, when they drew near his friends, they made them kneel. Imagine their kneeling, in their beauty and the fashion of their creation, while your heart knows that you will ride one of them to your Lord, setting forth among the visitors of him. When they had made them kneel, and they knelt upon the dunes of musk in the meadows of saffron, beneath Ba with Macron and the resting place of the worshippers, the angels came forward to the friends of God and said with the beauty of their tones, O friends of the most merciful, God your Lord sends you greetings of peace, and invites you to visit him, so visit him, that he may look at you and you look at him, and speak to you and you speak to him, and answer you and you answer him, and increase you of his bounty and his mercy. Indeed, he is of vast mercy and great bounty. When the friends of God heard it, and you heard it with them, they sprang up, hastening to mount them, in love and longing for their Lord. So imagine the swiftness of their springing up, you among them, with the beauty of their faces and their light and their radiance, in joy at the nearness of their Lord and the sight of their beloved. Imagine their awe when they raised the right of their feet to the stirrups of ruby and emerald and pearl. Imagine the beauty of their feet and their bliss, for they are feet that have been transformed from their first creation and clothed in beauty other than what they were in the abode of the world. Then God sheltered them in his garden from every blemish, so he transformed their creation, theirs being the ages of time in the dunes of musk and the meadows of saffron. Imagine the beauty of their light, when the friends of God have raised them to the stirrups of ruby and pearl. Imagine them in their beauty in the fairest stirrups of the mounts of the gardens. Then they swung up, without violence or hardship, until they were settled upon saddles of pearl and ruby studded with rich brocade and purple. How beautiful the whiteness of pearl within the redness of purple! When they were settled upon them, and you were settled upon your mount with them, they urged on their mounts and they sprang up, and the dust of musk rose at their springing, settling upon their garments and their bodies. Then the mount steadied into a single rank, level, and they became a procession, level, with no crookedness in it, none going before another, so magnify it as a procession, and magnify it as a company of riders. Imagine the extent of their rank in its evenness, the lining up of their faces, level in their alignment, upon their brows the diadems, and above their heads crowns of pearl and ruby. So what do you think of the gathering of the faces of all the people of the gardens, upon them the diadems and the crowns, ranked, set in line? What do you think of more than 1,000,000,000,000, whose number hearts cannot reckon, of crowns of pearl and ruby ringing upon their faces, fresh, laughing, joyful, rejoicing? Were you to imagine this procession with its mounts, the evenness of its riders, and the lining up of its crowns upon the shining, soft faces of the friends of God beneath them, then overwhelm yourself with longing. You would be deserving of it, and entitled to it, if you grasped that with a longing from your heart, with certainty of the fulfillment of your Lord's promise. Of that to his friends. When the rank was even and the crowns lined up, they called out among themselves, Travel to our Lord. So imagine the mounts when they set out in travel, with hooves of ruby, a single travel along a single line, none going before another, the bodies of the friends of God quivering upon them with their bliss, their shoulders aligned in their travel, and the hooves of their mounts and stirrups aligned in their pace, so they set off thus, their mounts stirring up the musk with their hooves and the meadows of saffron quivering beneath their feet. When they drew near the trees of the garden, the trees cast to them of their fruits, so the fruits came, while they travelled, into their hands. How beautiful is that in their palms! And the trees withdrew and moved aside from their path, for their master inspired them not to break the rank so that it would bend after its straightness, and differ after its evenness, and part a friend of God from his companion, for they are companions in the gardens for their love of one another in the world in their Lord. The companions are renowned, every two companions renowned for their companionship, their dress and their garb made a single colour, and the colour of their mounts a single colour. The yearning of hearts to gaze upon the generous one. So imagine yourself, when your Lord has favoured you, clinging to your companion, your shoulder to his shoulder, having drawn near the trees of the garden, and they shook off their fruit, so the fruits fell into your hands and the hands of the friends of the most merciful. Then they withdrew with their roots from their path, and they travel, joyful, their hearts straining with attachment toward gazing at their beloved, so they travel in joy, and turn one to another conversing, and laugh one to another, jesting in their travel, praising their Lord for what he has been true to them, and for what he has permitted them of his nearness. While they are in their travel, suddenly they drew near the throne of their Lord, and beheld the beauty of his veils and his light, and they urged on the travel in longing and love and joy of him. So imagine their mounts flying in their travel with the evenness of their procession and the radiance of their faces, while the angels have encircled the mounts, escorting them in procession to their Lord, until they came to the open plain of their Master's throne. What God has prepared for the people of his election and his beloved. So imagine the breadth of that plain and the beauty of its light in its splendor and its bloom, and the rugs and cushions have been laid upon the dunes of musk, each youth among them knowing what has been prepared for him, and the chairs for the people of his election among his servants and his beloved among his creation, when they drew near to what had been prepared for them of the pulpits and chairs and rugs and cushions. Each one folded his fair leg from the stirrup to a pulpit or chair or rug. Imagine their folding their legs to their chairs, until they were settled upon them, and imagine the bliss of those thighs and haunches raised upon the chairs of pearl and ruby, so magnify it as a seat, and magnify the friend of God seated at ease. When the people took their places and were settled in their seats, the veils radiating their light, O the delight of their eyes. And they inclined their ears, awaiting the hearing of speech from their beloved, so imagine them in the seat of truthfulness which their master and sovereign promised them, in nearness to him according to their stations, for they are in nearness to him according to their ranks. Those who love him are nearest of them to him in nearness, since they were, in the world, most intense in love of him, and nearer to his throne than they are those who upheld his proof before his creation, then the prophets, peace be upon them, then the truthful, according to that, in nearness to the mighty, the merciful. So magnify him as one visited. And majestic and exalted is he as one visited. So imagine their assembly in the beauty of their honor and the beauty of their faces and their radiance, when the light of his throne, mighty and majestic, and the radiance of his veils, has flushed it. For if your reason were sound to you, then you imagined their assembly and the radiance of their chairs and their pulpits, and what they await of the sight of their Lord, then your soul flew up in longing for him, you would be deserving of it. When that loomed great before one of reason concerning God, longing for his Lord and the sight of him, then imagine that with an unburdened mind, that perhaps your soul may be generous in cutting off every barrier that cuts you off from him, and leaving every cause that distracts you from drawing near to your Lord therein. When the assembly was settled with them, and the seat made firm beneath them, the tables were laid for them, that God, mighty and majestic, might honor his visitors with feeding and refreshing them, and the tables were laid for the visitors of God, mighty and majestic, and his beloved among his creation, the angels standing over them, honoring the visitors of the most merciful, and the platters of gold were set, in them the foods and the choice fruits, such as they could not have known to wish. For, so they put forth their hands, gladdened by their Lord's honoring of them, for it is a right upon every one visited that he honor his visitor. So how then with the one visited, the generous, the one, the bountiful, the glorious, the great? So imagine them while they eat, joyful, rejoicing at the honoring of their master. Until, when they had finished their eating, the majestic said to his angels, give them to drink. So the angels came to them, not the servants and boys, with goblets of pearl and cups of ruby, in them wine and honey and water and milks. So imagine those cups and those goblets in the hands of the angels of the most merciful. The friends of God took them and drank them, so the beauty of the drink vied in the faces of the visitors, and when the angels had given them to drink what God commanded them of the drinks, the majestic said, clothe my friends. So imagine the angels, having come with the robes the like of which they had not worn in the garden, then they stood over them and clothed in them the people of God's honoring and good pleasure. Imagine, when they had let them down from above their heads until they reached their feet, their faces shining with their beauty, then the majestic, blessed and exalted, commanded, perfume them. So the clouds rose up in their beauty and the intensity of their brightness and light, to carry the kinds of perfume, of musk and all the sweetness of the garden, the like of whose scent they had never found. Imagine them raining upon them, the perfume falling upon them in rain, until it covered their brows and their garments. The lifting of the veil and the appearing of our Lord in his perfection to his elect. When they had eaten and drunk, and the angels had bestowed the robes, and the rain of the cloud had perfumed, their eyes were fixed and their hearts attached, then the veils were lifted. While they are in that, suddenly the veils are lifted, and their Lord appears to them in his perfection, and when they looked at him, and at what they could not have imagined, nor can they ever imagine it, for he is the eternal whom nothing of his creation resembles, when they looked at him, their beloved called to them in welcome from him, and said to them, welcome, my servants. Its effect upon the beloved of God, and their hearing the speech of God. When they heard the speech of God, in his majesty and his beauty, from him, there overcame their hearts of joy and gladness what they had never found the like of in the world nor in the garden, for they hear the speech of one who resembles nothing of all things. So imagine them, having lowered their heads and inclined their ears to hear his speech, the light of joy having risen over their faces at the speech of their beloved and the comfort of their eyes. For were you to imagine yourself, having heard the saying of God to his friends, welcome to them, then your soul flew up in joy of him and love of him, that would be paltry and small beside what you would imagine of yourself at hearing his speech. So he greeted them with peace, and they returned to him, "You are peace, and from you is peace, and to you belong the right of majesty and honor. So welcome to my servants and my visitors and my chosen ones among my creation, who kept my covenant, and guarded my charge, and feared me in the unseen, and stood for me in every state, apprehensive, and I saw the toil they bore in their bodies, in preference for my good pleasure with them. I saw what the people of your age did to you, yet the harshness of the people did not bar you from my right. Wish of me whatever you will." When he thanked them for their keeping of his right, and acknowledged of them their fear, and welcomed them in love of them, since by that they were worshipping him in the world, their hearts flew up in joy and gladness, since they had not been remiss in his obedience nor fallen short in fear of him, so they rejoiced at what they were, by it, in the world, devoting to God, of the intensity of their fear and their keeping of his right and guarding it. So they returned to him the answer with the joy of their hearts, swearing by his greatness and his majesty, that they had fallen short of what was due to him from them, in reverence of him and reckoning it too great, since he had rewarded them with his garden and honored them with his visit and his nearness and the hearing of his speech. So they said then, "By your might and your majesty and your greatness and the loftiness of your place, we did not give you your due measure, nor render to you all your right. So grant us leave to prostrate." So their Lord said to them, "I have lifted from you the burden of worship and given rest to your bodies, for long did you weary your bodies and lay bare your faces for me, now you have come to my honoring and my mercy, so wish of me whatever you will." And in some of the report, that when they look at him they fall prostrate, and he calls to them with his speech, "Blessed and exalted, raise your heads, this is not a time of work, this is a time of joy and gazing." So imagine with your reason the light of their faces, and what enters them of joy and gladness when they beheld their sovereign, and heard the speech of their beloved, and the comfort of their hearts, and the delight of their eyes, and the good pleasure of their hearts, and the repose of their souls. So they raised their heads from their prostration, and looked, with their eyes, at him whom nothing resembles, attaining thereby the utmost of honor and the furthest reach of good pleasure and elevation. So what do you think of their gazing at the mighty, the majestic, whom imaginations cannot grasp, nor minds encompass, nor thoughts give form, nor wits delimit, whom no wombs contained, nor loins transmitted, who does not come into being so as to be fashioned and shifting, the eternal, the ancient, before whom minds are bewildered in their grasp, and tongues fall mute in likening him by his attributes, for he is the one unique in his essence, beyond the likeness of essences, exalted in his majesty above equality with the created. Glory be to him. Nothing is equal to him, no partner shares with him, and there is nothing he wills that is too hard for him or that his bringing forth makes him unable to do. The tyrants have submitted to his greatness, and the first and the last have humbled themselves to his decree. His knowledge has pierced through all things, of what was, and what will not be, and how what would be, were it to be, would be. So he has encompassed all things in knowledge, and heard their voices in hearing, and grasped their persons in sight, and his will has gone through them, and his decree has been carried out in them, so they are governed by his governance, originated by his origination, coming to be from his will. Nothing of them came before its time in which he willed its being, nor lagged behind his will, and how should one be too hard for him who was not a thing remembered until he brought him into being? Glory be to him, the One, the Subduer. When God's friends had been gladdened by the sight of him, and he had honored them with his nearness, and made their hearts blissful with his private converse and the hearing of his speech, he gave them leave to depart to what had been prepared for them of his honoring, their bliss, and their pleasures. So they departed upon steeds of pearl and ruby, upon couches over which were the bridal canopies, fluttering and flying in the meadows of the gardens. So what do you think of faces that have looked at God, mighty and majestic, and heard his speech, how he doubled their beauty and their comeliness, and increased that in their radiance and their light? So they ceased not in their travel until they came in sight of their palaces, and when they appeared to their servants and their stewards and their boys, each one of them rushed forth with his servants and stewards and boys, receiving him from the gates of his palaces, until they encircled him, escorting him in procession to his palaces and his pavilions. When he drew near the gate of his palace and his pavilions, the chamberlain stood, raising the curtains of the gates of his palace, magnifying and revering him, and his wives rushed to him, and when his wife looked at the beauty of his face, which had been doubled in its beauty and radiance and light, she increased in love and longing for him, and his palaces and his domes and his pavilions and his wives shone with the light of his face and his beauty, and his wives increased in beauty and comeliness and dignity and grace. Then they descended from their steeds to the courts of their palaces, then settled upon their furnishings, and returned to their bliss, and longed for the company of their brethren. The return to the abiding bliss, and the brethren meeting in joy and drink. So they mounted the noble camels and the steeds upon them, visiting one another, until they met upon the rivers of the garden, and the cushions of the gardens and their rugs were spread for them upon the dunes of musk and camphor, and the brethren met in joy and drink. The boys arose with the cups and pitchers and goblets, scooping from the rivers of the garden, their rivers of wine and salsabil and tasnim. And when the boys took the cups and scooped to give the friends of the Most Merciful to drink, they were not aware until the call of God, mighty and majestic, O my friends, long did I see you in the world with your lips withered and your throats parched from thirst, so pass the cup among yourselves today and return to your bliss, eat and drink in satisfaction for what you put forth in the days past. So creation cannot describe the joy of their hearts when they heard the speech of their master recalling their deeds, in thanks from him to them, and gladness from him toward them, since he called them to pass the cup for fellowship among themselves after their acquaintance in the world, in exchange for the fellowship of the people of the world over their wines. Were you to see their faces, having shone with joy at the speech of their master and his delight, when he reminded them of their righteous deeds, of their fasting, and their leaving the fellowship of the people of the world for his good pleasure, and what he recompensed them with a fellowship in his nearness, and what they were made certain of their joy at their fellowship over wine and honey and milks, so magnify it as an assembly, and magnify it as a gathering, and magnify it as companions in the nearness of the Most Merciful, the Most Compassionate. The conclusion of the book. So be longing for your Lord, and endearing yourself to him, and let nothing come between you and him as a barrier, and do not turn away from him, and beseech in your seeking from God, by his bounty and his goodness, that he not cut you off from them. And with God is success, and to him is the journey's end, the garden is the abode of the believers, the reward of the God-fearing, the joy of the sorrowful, and there is no power and no strength except in God, the Most High, the Most Great. The Book of Imagining is complete, by the praise of God, and may God bless Muhammad the Prophet and all his family.